God. Okay, so welcome to Sales Reimagined. It's basically a short, sharp taster session on how changing face of B2B sales has occurred, where we are and what we're going to do. I'm going to share 12 practical tips with you over the next half hour. I'm delighted to be doing this in association with Gary and the team from My Growth. Gary and the team are specialist recruiters who look after the sales profession, and he was looking to understand what skill sets people need if they're going to be going forward into a sales role. And you know, people are still advertising for what you would call traditional sales rep type roles, and I'm going to prove that those skills are important but have changed significantly, if that makes sense. Okay, because it's a taster, I'm going to whiz through it at a rare old pace. If you've been in a workshop with me before, you'll know there's normally quite a lot of interactivity. Because it's half an hour and because there's 12 tips, it's going to be sort of less of that. But so I apologise in advance for that. But I'm also managing the waiting room while we're trying to crack on with this. So I'm going to start with a couple of thought processes, really. And the first one is, what I'm going to say to you is that sales has been changing for a while, and COVID just accelerated that change. So the problem with sales is that when the internet arrived and when YouTube started posting all sorts of content and when people could look on Google, most customers now come to an organization further through the process of decision making because they've already got the opportunity to do the research, particularly if you are providing a technical service or they're looking at your capabilities or your content, or looking at your website, they're looking at testimonials and case studies. So they were always doing that, and things were changing a little bit before COVID. What COVID's done, it's completely changed the game in terms of the communication piece. And what we need to think about is, how do we adapt to that? Okay, so what I'm going to say is that we don't hold all the aces anymore if you're a salesperson. And we don't hold all the aces because knowledge, features, technical or otherwise, it's all available everywhere. Anyone can find it. So what used to happen was, in return for giving you some money, you would share some knowledge or a product or a service or something. That doesn't happen anymore because the customer or the client comes to you already well versed in what their potential requirements are. So I reckon they're 2 steps further down than they ever used to be in the early days of sales. Now, what I'd say to you is, I'm going to demonstrate this with some reference points to some books and some case studies, etc. Is it's now about a push and pull in terms of sales and marketing. So the first thing is, it's making sure that you're visible. It's making sure that you're pushing the content, your expertise, your relevance, your capabilities. You're pushing that out to the world, whichever channels you use. I'll talk about channels shortly, so that people are drawn to it in terms of saying, I'm going to look and see if what I'm reading, seeing, engaging with is valid. And if it is valid, let's make a decision to engage with that person. And the classic example of this, by the way, is this particular webinar. Gary was looking for a couple of weeks, Gary, weren't you, on the internet for someone to look at how sales has been changing and the impact of that on, you know, recruitment and recruits and skill sets, and couldn't find anyone who was doing that until he came across someone who recommended some content that I was doing. That would never have happened if I wasn't putting content out there and that was being drawn to me. Would that be fair, Gary?
Yeah, totally. And it was all about searching, saw some content on LinkedIn that was relevant to this topic. Asked that person if they were the right person. They said no and pointed me in your direction, and that's how we got to here. So yeah, totally. It was all on social media, LinkedIn. That's how this came about.
And that's about me pushing content to pull you back in on that basis, and that's how that works. And this is the phrase we want to use, is thought leadership, okay? It's quite cerebral, but the reality is, and I use the word person of influence, which makes you sound like Kim Kardashian, but I don't really want you to think about being Kim Kardashian or, you know, whoever the latest influencer is on I don't know, Instagram or whatever. This is about being someone of interest, relevance, value in the sector in which you work. So I'll take Mark Fernley as an example. Mark, you work for Dynamic Business Services. You're a brilliant e-learning business based out of Leeds. you work nationally for some massive organizations, you've got some really, really creative content. And what I'd like to see, and I do see, don't get me wrong, is I'd like to see Mark Fernley and Dynamic Business Services being the only place that I ever come across fabulous e-learning content, whether you're commenting on the changing face of learning, whether you are writing white papers on how e-learning is developing given, lockdown and COVID, and making sure that you are seen as the go-to reference resource expert or whatever in the field of e-learning. And that's about throwing content through the right channels, making sure that content's relevant. And then when you are engaging with customers, pointing them to that content, because that content can tell you so much more than you can in an email, even a phone call. And we'll talk about types of content later. And one more to pick on, we've got Marianne Smith from Do Marketing, and Marianne is the UK's expert on the customer journey. I promise you that. Okay, I'm not building you up too much there, Marianne. Is about the impact of the customer journey. There's 6 stages of the customer journey, and Marianne's one of the only people who dissect that 6-stage process and look at where do you get the biggest impact in your customer experience. Now, one of those things is she's helping companies to save money, they're spending money in the wrong place of the customer journey, and they're also looking and saying, I'm thinking of investing in this particular person or this particular skill set, and that might not be the right people. But the reason I know Marianne is an expert in that field is anything she comments on, any post that she creates, anything she shares is based around customer experience, customer journey. So she's aligning herself with the subject for which she's perceived as, and is reality, an expert. It's not about creating content all the time. It's about sharing others. It's about commenting on stuff. It's about realigning yourself with things that are out there. So that's kind of where we need to get to. Can you find recruits, Gary, and the people in recruitment who are good at, creating content and aligning themselves with content, understand the power of content? So I'm going to recommend a book for anyone to have a look at. And it's by a guy called Daniel Priestley. It's called Oversubscribed. And I'm connected to Daniel on LinkedIn, and he's now investing in one of my client businesses, which is great to see. But this guy's an absolute genius. He's basically saying, if you create the awareness, you create the content, you create that noise, that influence, you'll have more business coming to you than you can handle. People will be coming to you because they see you as that expert. They've already done that research. It's already step 3 in the process. So it's a really powerful way of looking at, instead of waiting for stuff to come to you, making it happen through that. Okay. So we're going to get practical. We're going to look at a typical B2B sales funnel. And that's a 4-stage. There's 7 or 8 stages in a sales funnel, particularly if you break it down. But essentially, raising awareness, interacting with the customer, raising some interest, and getting them to take some action. That's still the same. That is still the same process. That process is still relevant. But the execution, given where we are with lockdown, technology, Zoom, all of the technologies around, and how we've had to work with people working from home and remotely, it's changed dramatically. So what we're going to look at is what changes have been afoot and how do you influence them. So I've got 12 steps to go through. So is my sales preference still an option is question 1. And what I mean by that is I was working with a client the other day and I said, how do you generate your business? And they said, we do 2 big exhibitions every year. First reaction that was, how's that going then? 2 big exhibitions a year, yeah? One in Germany and one in Dubai. Wow, okay, that doesn't work anymore, does it? Exhibitions, networking, old school sales repping, key account visits, customer site visits, even direct dial phone calls. Hard to do. So what you're going to look at and say is, I need to think about what I was doing before, is it still relevant? How many of you have tried to contact someone by phone during lockdown and been frustrated because you ring the office and they go, oh, I can't put you through, he's working from home. And normally they just put you through to extension 246 or whatever. They don't do that anymore. So even that approach, which is fairly straightforward, has gone. Old school sales repping. I've got a guy who works for one of my clients. He is old school sales rep. He's a brilliant old school sales rep. He's been like a caged tiger for like 5-6 months. He's now starting to go out again, but he's finding that some customers don't want to see him. Don't come to my site. I'm not interested. I don't want to. And they also used to invite customers to their site to say, we'll have a show around of our manufacturing process. Customers are going, not yet, thanks. So you've got to think about what processes you go through. The next one is choosing the best platform for initial engagement. I've put here to Zoom or not to Zoom, but you could call it Teams, you can do Google Hangouts. I don't know about you, but I've done 6 or 7 different platforms and whatever. But also, there's been an emergence of WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is a really informal but really effective communication channel. And what I've seen is some of my clients now have put their key accounts into a WhatsApp group, and they're sharing content through that platform informally, selectively, but it's actually improving the channel of communication, because if someone's sat at home, the first thing that goes, I guarantee at the end of this webinar, when you look at your phones, you'll have 6 emails, 2 texts and 3 WhatsApps. You're going to look at your WhatsApp quite quickly. So it's a really good way of thinking. Am I using the technology in the right way, in the right place? Zooming's great, but I'm sick of people saying, shall we have a Zoom call? Let's just pick up the phone. Sometimes doing the phone call is still the same as it was before. You don't have to Zoom because we can, but you need someone who's got Zoom skills and Zoom capability, but also looking at other technologies like WhatsApp. Some of my clients use other messaging platforms. One uses a thing called Slack, which I think is quite an unfortunate name, but it's the same principle, but it's more of a secure business platform. It's a bit like WhatsApp. You can share content and you can share all sorts on there. So the next one is when you start prospecting. One of the things I start when I go into an organization is I say, who do you already know? And they'll give me a list of their key accounts, or they'll give me a list of their prospect list. And I'll say to them, when was the last time you ever exported your LinkedIn connections? When was the last time you ever looked at who you're already further down the relationship piece with? So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. How many of you on here have exported their LinkedIn connections in the last 6 months? Any of you? So Andrew and Keith, we're in the presence of greatness, Andrew and Keith. Thank you. Well done. Your LinkedIn connections are absolutely powerful for you, simply because on some level, they decided at some stage to say, yeah, you're worth connecting to. Now, what that level is and what that stage is almost immaterial. The fact is you've got a connection with them. So what I'll say to you with your LinkedIn connections, and what I will do, I'll attach to the slide deck I'll send you, the 5-step process to how to export your LinkedIn connections with some screen shares and things. Basically, if you export your LinkedIn connections, and I sort them by job title, I've got 6,200. So I've been on it a long time and I build them up quite regularly. But I have no idea who those 6,200 are until I export them, and I sort them by job title, and I go, wow, I've got 126 sales directors, I've got 65 training managers, I've got 87 CEOs, which means that I've got a campaign, a target, an opportunity to engage with those people I'm already closer to. And from a prospecting point of view, that for me, if you're on LinkedIn, you're active on LinkedIn, that's number one, okay? But the other thing is, if you're looking at people that you want to connect to, is give them a reason to connect. When you send a connection request to somebody, you often just put in there, hi, my name's Gary, we're a great business, we'd love to connect with you, hope you can accept that, okay? I'd like to think you personalize the message, which is great. But actually, that's not good enough these days either. And I think because of technology, you can do something different. So I'm sharing this screen with you. I'm going to explain what we've done here. Now, I'm working with a company who have designed a CE marked European standard face shield. It's not your cheap and cheerful disposable stuff that you see they're wearing in the Co-op or Asda, the throwaway to landfill, etc. These things are really highly qualified, high quality, well designed, etc. And I had a thought process at saying, because football stadiums are opening up gradually, let's go and talk to stadium security people, commercial directors of football stadiums, and let's talk to them about face shields. Now, this one particularly, I just picked this, I didn't pick it deliberately. Lee Fry works at Middlesbrough. I'm a massive Borough fan, so I just put that in the message. But what I didn't just say, do you want to connect with me? I put a link in the connection request, which takes him straight to the face shield page on my client's site that draws them into. So this guy, Lee, looks at it and goes, this guy's a massive Borough fan, so what? We're doing some work as part of Return to Stadiums, so what? I'm looking at Connect to bring to your attention something to protect your players, staff and stewards, PPE, so what? I'll click this link, boom, the link opens up visually, video, looks fantastic. Is that more likely to get him to say, I'll connect with you, than just a flatbed, single, 3-paragraph, I don't know how many characters you get on a LinkedIn connection request? You don't get enough to sell your message. So I would always say with a LinkedIn connection request, always now put a link in. You decide where you want that link to go. Which part of your website? Is it a case study? Is it an animation on a Vimeo platform or a YouTube platform? What is the best message and the most visually impactful piece that you're going to drive someone to go, these are the guys I'd like to connect with because they've given me more than just a connection request. So then the next thing is, if you're prospecting, how to use your Zoom skills, okay? So before you want to connect, before you want to set up a meeting, or you're just doing general prospecting where you've identified this person or this group or this whatever it might be, we can all use Zoom now. We're all on Zoom, aren't we? How many of you have tried using Zoom as a video recording piece? Now, I'm going to say to Mark, you've probably got video capabilities in the office without doing it. You could do decent production values at Dynamic, Mark, couldn't you? Because you've got the studio set up and all that kind of thing. I haven't got a studio. I think most of you got a studio, but I can go on Zoom, have a meeting with myself, which is pretty sad, and I can record a personal message. And I can do a 1-minute video. So I can say, hi, Gary, great to talk to you, great to meet you. The reason I've sent you this video is blah, 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 blah. And I can send that video to you as a reach out much more powerfully than I can send an email or do a phone call or even WhatsApp, whatever it might be. Now, previously, people were bothered about production values. Lighting's not great, it just looks a bit homemade and all that kind of thing. Nobody cares anymore. No, the only thing they don't care about is if you've got your cat jumping on you or you've got your dog sort of humping your leg or whatever, as long as that doesn't happen. And the beauty of recording a 1-minute piece on Zoom is if it's rubbish, just do another one. Keith and I did a recent webinar that we did, which we've converted to a podcast. We were one take, weren't we, Keith? We were brilliant. One take wonders, Keith. But if it hadn't been, we just stop and do it again, don't you? So what a 1-minute video. So I've got a piece of homework for you. And I want you to think about, if you're recording a 1-minute video, first of all, what would you say? Who would you send it to? And why would you target them? So I'd just like you to consider a script for a 1-minute personal video message. So it depends on you in terms of what you're saying. It depends on you in terms of what you're promoting. What I would say to you all is don't sell in the video. Just reach out and explain why you're reaching out. Explain something about their business that you know. So, I'm working with a company at the moment who do live event production and broadcasting. And the events industry is on its knees, as you can imagine. But quite a few people are doing these hybrid events now where they're doing sort of, you can walk through and go in and virtually meet and network and conference rooms and all that kind of thing. And, the 1-minute video there isn't about, hey, we're great, we can do that for you. It's about our understanding of the events industry, how it's changing and how people are embracing hybrid event technology. And if you are looking at hybrid options, we'd love to talk to you about how we might, and it's always might, not how we can, too pushy, too early, how we might be able to work with you, okay? So I'd like you to consider that because we've all got the capability. Anyone can Zoom and anyone can press record. And it doesn't matter what as long as you haven't got a background. I was saying earlier, for those who came on earlier, most of you have got something going on in the background. Gary's got the split blue and white. If you were just against the white screen, Gary, it would look like a hostage video. So don't look like a hostage video. Look approachable. And, I deliberately do it with this little piece of furniture in the background, just so there's something that breaks up the screen. Does that make sense? So a 1-minute video, and you can record them individually and you can send them to people and go, this is for you, Mark Fernley. This is for you, Keith Rozelle. This is for you, Gary James. Okay. Next one is, if you're going to do a chemistry meeting, we used to do it by phone, Let's have a ring and find out what you're doing. Find out what makes you tick. I would now say, let's set up a Zoom call. Let's set up a Teams meeting, whatever it might be, because I want to see the whites of the eyes of someone. Not because I want to control it particularly, although that's quite important, but it's not an option. So I don't say, would it be okay? I'll say to people, it's what we do. If somebody says to me, can we just do a phone call? I'll say, well, the way we work is we do it by Zoom because it's better for you and it's better for us. I don't ask permission. I don't say, is it okay to set up a Zoom call? I'll say, I'm looking to set up a Zoom call because that's how we work. And I know, Mark, you've been doing virtual meetings for a long, long time, haven't you, as part of the sort of qualification process?
We have, yeah, but far more obviously since sort of February, March time. Everything these days is Zoom, and we make an assumption every single time that we are going to do a Zoom call rather than just a call. It's easier for us, it's easier for them, and it's the next best thing to having a face-to-face meeting.
It is, and I think it doesn't. The expectation is it's okay to do that. As long as you say that's how we work, you're just arguing about whether it's Tuesday or Thursday then, aren't you? You're not arguing about whether they're going to have a Zoom or not. So it's about the assertiveness of saying this is how we work, okay? So the next thing is, when you're using Zoom, you can make your pitch much more compelling. So you can share screens, you can do decals, you can do infographics, you can do animations, videos, or whatever it might be, none of which you can do over the phone. That little decal on the left is my online academy part of my business, and it says we provide accessible, inspiring content, expertly hosted and delivered, which is questionable, I suspect. But if I want to talk to somebody about a sales academy or webinars or developing their emerging leaders or doing some work on coaching, that one decal, one single screen share, one decal allows me to just convert them into a conversation. That infographic, I love an infographic. I just love, you can talk through an infographic, stats, graphs, etc. And don't forget the power of animation and video. So again, Mark, your e-learning material is very visual, isn't it? And compelling. Yep. So, on that basis, that's really, really powerful. So, okay, I'm just going to close the door because my cat, which is very professional, is going mental, okay? She's 17 and deaf and she's got the most weird noise that she makes. Hang on a second. And if I knew how to edit, I'd edit that out, but I don't, so we'll have to leave that in. How professional was that? Right, okay, so again, thinking about your pitch and the visuals, you can't do anything without some methodology, which is using the technology that we've talked about, okay? But again, remember why people buy. They can find the features themselves. People buy this little decal here. The middle circle is why. The red circle's the why, the blue circle's the how, and the outside circle's the what. I will embed a video, short video, into the slide deck that I send you, which has got a 3-minute video on the power of why and the impact piece that people have, okay? And this is another thing. Proposals. Stop sending proposals in Word because it just doesn't cut it anymore. So this is a proposal that one of my clients, Floki Health, has designed. And it just shows you visually, it's much more appealing. It's designed in PowerPoint and it's converted to a PDF, but it's delivered in PowerPoint and then converted and sent back. So on the front screen, it tells them it's got somebody using the technology, it's got somebody in a white coat, somebody with glasses who's obviously quite bright or they've got bad eyesight. And down the left-hand side is the slide deck that they go through, which has got some embedded animation. If your proposals now are Word documents, they're just not good enough. They're not strong enough. They're not powerful enough. And more importantly, is how do you present the proposals? Okay. So what you've got to do with the proposal is you've got to design the proposal so the last thing that's in the proposal is the investment the customer's going to make in that solution. It's not cost, it's investment. How much are they prepared to invest in their staff? How much are they prepared to invest in their learning? How much are they prepared to invest in improving their customer journey or in their sales function or whatever it might be? Because if you then present a proposal, if you send a proposal by Word, you've got no control over it whatsoever. No control about how they read it, when they read it. I guarantee they're going to flick through, look at the price and go, but expensive. If you present the proposal, you're leading them to all the bits that you want to lead them to, which says, right, now, looking at what we delivered, the solution that's in place, the investment is going to be, and you can control the wow factor, you can control the release of that powerful information. Think about case studies. This is the client with the face shields, and they've got this thank you PDM, and they've got a little video where the nurse takes her face mask off underneath and just says the fact that, you know, we helped out Harrogate Hospital at the very start of COVID, and you know, it's really quite powerful as visual collateral. Word just doesn't do it anymore in terms of proposals, okay? So when it comes to the pitch, if it's worth winning, it's worth inspiring them. So as I say, never just present it, never just send it, present it, and don't ask permission. Again, like I said earlier, what you've got to think about is, thanks for the opportunity to work with you. What I need to do now is go away and work on a proposal, and I'll set up a Zoom meeting to present it to you. If they then go, can you just send it to me? So, well, how we work is we'll present it to you, so we're there to answer your questions. It works for you, it works for us. And you're presenting the information, the flow of information in the right order at the right time. And you're not even revealing the investment until you're ready to reveal that, when you've overcome objections and handled the problems. The investment piece is the last bit, not the first bit that they look at when you send it through the post. Negotiations best done face to face. So if you control the conversation and the presentation, you now get to the end game where you're thinking about winning the business. The one thing I say to people is, are you good enough, confident enough, and capable enough to get your weakness out? So if you leave a weakness on the table, you've definitely got a weakness to your argument. I'll give you an example. I'm based in York, up in North Yorkshire, and one of my clients is based in Cardiff. I was recommended to him a couple of years ago, and his first reaction was, he said a couple of times, oh, you're a long way away, aren't you, in York? So I knew York and Cardiff, geography-wise, was an issue for him. So I made sure that I owned that weakness. And throughout the proposal and the conversation, I said to him, I understand that you're concerned about me being based in York, and here's why you shouldn't be. So I didn't leave that on the table. I didn't leave it there thinking, I've done a really good proposal, I've inspired him with the content, I'll just leave him to think about it. Because in my absence, he would have talked to his team and said, yeah, but he's based in York. If you know there's a weakness in your argument, whether it's how long you've been going or something about, you know, the capability of your solution, own it. And you own it before you close. You own it at that stage to say to people, I know you've got some concerns about, and here's why you shouldn't. Because that way you're controlling that delivery. Okay? And I said, focus on the investment on the cost. So the best ever close, this hasn't changed actually with Corey. I want people who are good, strong closers to work in sales. I'm direct, what a surprise. I'm quite happy to ask for the business. I suspect Gary and some of your team in recruitment are pretty direct. You know, are we going ahead with this? What's happening, etc. And some of you are, Keith, I know you are. But what if you're not? What if you've not read the person? What if you're not particularly adept at understanding body language on Zoom? So what I'm going to say to you is I've put an iron fist in a silk glove, simply because it's really powerful, but they don't feel it. So it's a bit of a, you know, a soft scenario. I'll always do a pre-close summary. I class selling like dating. I'll take them on a journey and I'll just imagine, I'll say to them, right, so this is where we were, this is what your challenge was, this is what we proposed, and this is kind of, you know, where I think we are. So like being on a date, reminding them of the high points before you ask for a second date. And what you do then is you say to them, so what do you want to do now? If you say to somebody after you've owned that complete process, you've owned the delivery, you've presented, you've shown them some really good content, and don't forget they're already 3 stages down the process before they actually came to you, what do you want to do now? The numbers add up to about 60%. 60% of people will say, yeah, we'd like to go ahead. The other 40% will tell you why they can't go ahead right now, which gives you a second bite of the cherry, which might be along the lines of, well, we have to have a board meeting, we need to sign it off, we need to think about it. Okay, that's great. First of all, when is that? And secondly, what can I give you and to help you to make a positive decision in our favour? So it's a fabulous closing statement and a question. And the last tip is, you've fought hard to win them. How do we keep them? This is about being creative, a bit like we've talked about earlier. So what about doing some how-to video guides? Your existing customers keep coming back to you with the same old questions. If you're a product developer, you know, how does that product work? I've got a problem with that motor or that engine. One of my clients, a company called the Automatic Door Company, they automate gates and doors and barriers and all that kind of thing. And they're just recording some how-to video guides on how to keep your motors clean and how to keep the, you know, whatever, so that they're not phoning up when your motors are all gunged up. Have a look at the how-to guide, clean it yourself, no problem. Frequently asked questions, do this little video blog. Here's some frequently asked questions. Video works so much more powerfully. No one's going to read a manual. No one's going to read that. What are the questions that you get asked? And then set up some Zoom review meetings with your key accounts. So how's it looking? How are we doing? What's next? We'll do it by Zoom face-to-face. So quite quick. At the back of the information pack, there's some podcast information. There's some links to other stuff. There's a link to one of my clients called Josh Gudgeon. If you're not sure about creating content, he's got some free YouTube channel content about creating like a pro, even on an iPhone. My connection details, Gary's connection details at My Growth, and that's the sort of workshop really. So it's a massively quick taster of a massively big subject. Any questions? I've got some chat there. Somebody's chatted. Oh, thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions from anybody?
Nick, I got loads from that. Thank you. I thought I knew one or two things about this area sort of anyway, but you've given me a really fresh sort of perspective on it, especially how to do stuff in the current environment with Zoom, creating video, adding value to clients, and great way to keep in touch and repeatable content. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks as well, Jeanette, for that. It's not about being Steven Spielberg. It's not about, you know, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to make a full animation, you know, whatever. It's not about investment sometimes. It's about just sticking the laptop on, pressing Zoom, pressing record and giving it a go. And I can't edit on Zoom. Well, I can. My daughter showed me how to edit a Zoom folder. I did a workshop with a lady once and I did a one-to-one with her and she recorded it. And at the end, she sort of went, I was thinking, I need to get rid of that. How do I get so? My daughter showed me how to clip the end off, but I'm not an editor. I don't know how to edit. So, you know, why just do 1 minute? And if it's not very good, do it again, you know?
Do you think that, I was going to say, Nick, do you think that's probably a bit of a problem because you overanalyze about getting that video right? That was my concern probably around doing video, is that it's not edited. It doesn't potentially look corporate and the lighting might not be right.
I don't think people care, Gary, anymore.
Really?
I think because we've been so used. I did a Zoom call the other day and there was a guy, I'm sure he smeared something over his lens because he looked like he was in some kind of faded kind of serial killer's hut. I don't think people care so much.
Yeah.
Really. I think they look and go, is this guy credible? Is his message good? Let's listen. You know, and I think as long as you give it some thought about who the recipient is and what makes them tick, you'd be surprised. Yeah.
And you reckon a minute long is a good kind of starting point? Yeah, not too long.
So. I think because you're not selling. You're basically saying, hey, this is us. We've done some research and we think that we can help you potentially. We'd love to explore that. What do you reckon? And people go, no, go on then. It's better than that cold call that people go and they go, oh, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a really more advanced and personal way of doing things. I'm conscious I haven't really engaged with Karen or Andrew. Karen, what's your thoughts on this morning? Do you want to unmute for me, Karen? Thank you.
It's really interesting, thank you. It's given me a lot to think about in areas that I probably wouldn't have considered before. So thank you for that.
Okay, no worries. Andrew, are you a recruitment guy, Andrew, yeah?
Yeah. The only thing that I picked up on is on the LinkedIn connections where, don't get me wrong, it was an amazing presentation, Nick, so it was good. On LinkedIn, they don't allow you to download the email addresses anymore. So I'm assuming you're on about reaching out just with your connections via the LinkedIn platform, yeah?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. One is I'll export my LinkedIn connections, and if I think they are worthy, I'll find their email address, or I'll do the old school research. So if I've got a sales director of a company, I'll ring and say, I'm looking to send an email through to Bob or whatever, or Jane, and I'll do the research. So yes, it does. You don't get the email address like you used to, which is really annoying, isn't it? Actually, the other thing that's more annoying is that 60% of people on LinkedIn have got a Yahoo or a Gmail or a whatever. So I never send anything business related to someone personal. So I will use the channel, but I'll drop links into the communication channel. I think the links, because they open up a little visual, make a difference to the impact of that. That's how I would do it. Yeah.
And what I would say, Nick, is it all sounds ideal and it all sounds brilliant, getting it up and running and knowing when to start. I think it's just literally taking that first step and doing your first message.
I think you're right. And I think what I would suggest that you do, Andrew, is maybe pick someone that you think you really want to get involved with as an organisation. Do a bit of research into what makes them tick, and then script something around a minute that says, hey, I've done some research into your organisation. I see that you're doing whatever you're doing, and I'd like to think we can help with that. You know, my name's Andrew, Viking Talent. I like to explore that. Boom. And it's soft, but it's showing that it's earned the right to be listened to because you've done a bit of research. I think sometimes lazy people don't do the research. They just send a bland message. Yeah. You know, a 1 minute video is worth recording 10 1-minute videos that are personal than one 1 minute video that you just reuse because it doesn't have the same impact. You know, it's a little bit of time. Any more questions, thoughts, or observations?
No.
So, thank you for your time.
Really good, Nick. Really good.
The Zoom link for the one at 12 the same as this one? So
no, there's a different link for 12, Mark. It's on the. If you find the LinkedIn post, or do you want me to send it to you?
Would you?
I'll send it to you for the 12 o'clock one. Is that for Johnny? Yeah.
Yeah, it is, mate. He'd forgotten about this one.
No, Johnny. No, I am shocked. Okay, no problem. That won't be mentioned.
No, don't. Yeah, I'm sure it won't, mate. I'm sure it won't.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop recording, but